Welcome to Hollywood and Beyond podcast with Cincinnati host Steven Brittingham. Experience meaningful and in-depth interviews with Hollywood's most interesting people. Enjoy the show.
You can receive all the latest episodes of Hollywood and Beyond with Steven Brittingham delivered to your favorite listening device by subscribing to the show on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or whatever happens to be your favorite podcast listening service. Don't miss out. Tune in. And now, your host, actor and writer, Steven Brittingham.
Hello, friends and listeners. Welcome to another episode of Hollywood and Beyond podcast. I am your host, actor and writer, Steven Brittingham, and perhaps I should also add, avid coffee drinker. No doubt about that. Well, thanks so much for listening, everyone. I really appreciate it. My special guest today on the podcast impressed me so much with her outstanding performance in the new film, Time Now. Her appealing screen presence was matched by her intriguing moments of a woman searching for answers as she returns to her hometown of Detroit. All the while dealing with the heavy burdens of grief and loss, as well as the complexities of family dysfunction.
Are you going to say hi to Andrew?
My Andrew has been gone for a long time.
Now's not the time. I didn't come here to relive the past.
This young lady is Eleanor Lambert, beautiful actress, I might also add.
Thank you.
Whose parents, Mom Diane Lane and father Christopher Lambert, both have contributed to cinema in the most extraordinary of manners. Well, it's an honor to have her on the show. Eleanor, welcome to Hollywood and Beyond.
Wow, thank you, Steven. What a wonderful introduction. Wow, thank you.
Well, thank you.
So happy to be here.
Well, so nice to have you here as my special guest, and so nice to be speaking with you today. So thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about this film. I'm very excited to see where our conversation goes.
That makes two of us. Where are you joining me from today by chance?
I am joining you from New York City.
New York.
New York City, yes. I'm actually about to head upstate for like 3 days. My mom is in town, and we're going to go up getting some nature, which I'm just like itching for. I'm so excited to.
Wow, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I wish you a great time with your mom, and I imagine it's starting to look like fall up there as well.
It is. Where are you located?
I am here in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, very nice. Okay, cool. So yes, you get weather. It's not
Yes.
LA. Sometimes people call from LA. I'm like, oh, you're fine. You're round.
Yeah, the sun's out today.
Yes, it's gloomy over here too, but it's staying in the 60s, which obviously I'm liking. I was raised in LA, so I'm comfortable still.
I have to tell you, Eleanor, and by the way, what a lovely name you have.
Thank you so much.
It is like pumpkin pie weather already, because this morning when I woke up, it was actually 34 degrees.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, no, it's not that cold over here yet. Interesting though that it's Ohio gets it.
Yeah,
Nice
but
and
it's going to warm
cold.
up to the high 50s, so it'll turn out to be like a typical fall day here. So,
Okay, beautiful.
well, once again, welcome to the podcast, and let me just say up front, congratulations on your sensational performance in this film. I was just so impressed.
Oh my God, thank you so much. That's just that's just so nice to hear. That if people can respond to a performance and to a character, I mean that's the dream, literally. So I'm grateful, so grateful to hear that. Thank you. Thank you.
I can't wait to ask you about how you prepared for this role and also just questions of curiosity I have because you are the lady behind the character. You're the one that brought her to life.
That is true. I was so lucky to. It's so true. Very blessed that Spencer, asked me and trusted me, and yeah. So I am ready. I'm ready for your questions.
All right. Well, here we go. And I thought before we dive into time now, I would just like to ask something that I've been wondering about as I was preparing for our conversation today. With your parents' background in the industry, it's just so amazing what each has done on their own. I've noticed, though, despite the fact you are a young lady, right? No doubt about that. But I've noticed that this is like a recent or not too long ago journey for you into acting. Am I correct about that?
Yes, you are very correct about that. It was something that I embarked on around 24. I'm 28 now, so I'm still very much, in the very beginning stages. And
and still a young lady.
And it's still a young lady, definitely. I took my time making my way to acting, mostly because I didn't understand the art form of it. I had as you said, my parents are in the industry, and I had a rather singular experience in that acting and film and movies were very much either, in my mind, whatever my parents are doing when they leave for 3 months, or even when I was on set, it was still, I didn't quite, I wasn't immersed in it, obviously, or like pure unadulterated entertainment, because my father and I would go to see, pretty much the most outrageous movies could see, like Italian Job and Transformers and superhero movies, and that was sort of what we like to do together. So I just grew up, not understanding the art form, so to speak. And it wasn't until I met my boyfriend, he's an actor as well, and he was the one that sort of introduced me to the craft of it and the artistry behind, honoring human experience. And that is sort of what I get out of acting now, that I can understand how impactful it is, how for the actor, for the viewer. So yeah, it didn't land until a bit later in terms of, I'm still very young, as you said, but later in terms of when people expect you to know what the heck you want to do with your life.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's wonderful perspective. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really respect your approach to all of that. You probably could have dived in years ago, but no doubt you were trying to forge your own path, try all sorts of things. And when the time was right, you could make that decision. And I think it's a good decision on your part based on this performance.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to embark on a new adventure, and especially I think, any art form, including what you do, including any kind of art form, it's particularly vulnerable, to go out there. And so I'm grateful actually that I did take my time, because I feel, it's a lifelong process of trusting yourself and learning how to be a person you like, So I am grateful that I was in a position. I'm so lucky to be able to take my time making such a decision. So that was a blessing for sure.
Well, how did the opportunity to appear in this film begin for you?
Oh, yes. Well, Spencer actually called me directly and just said, "Hey, I know that you're just beginning, but I have this movie I wrote 3 years ago, and I would really love it if you would consider playing the lead." And I was like, "Are you sure that you're calling the right number?" I couldn't believe it. It was just pinching myself. It was an amazing phone call to receive. And of course I said, yes, no question. I'm thrilled to thrilled to have the opportunity. So yeah, the Spencer called me directly, and then from there it blossomed into several long, deep, and wonderful conversations between him and myself, and also with Claudia Black, and we had some really wonderful chats leading up to this. So by the time we got on set, we were all caught up and friends. It was wonderful.
Well, Eleanor, I was thinking that your character, the struggles she is having emotionally, the torment on the inside, all of that, in many ways, it's almost at times like a brooding performance. And I mean that as a compliment. The film is like a slow burn in a really good way. But I also think your performance is like that because you kept making me want to find out more about your character and why was she feeling this way. And I'm just wondering, how did you prepare? You mentioned a few things a moment ago, but did you do anything else to reach that mind state?
I've said this in several of the interviews, but I think it's such an important point and something that I'm still very much, learning how to dance this line of, Eleanor, the actor, needs to know everything that's going on within Jenny. But Jenny, the character, any character, isn't going to necessarily know everything that the actor knows. And how to portray this character truthfully and include, have that information as the actor, but not let it necessarily show in the performance. That is quite a task. Jenny is very different from me. And as you said, yes, she is. She's totally brooding. and you say that, it's so true. Jenny is in such inner turmoil and pain. However, she spends almost 90% of the film repressing and shutting down and running away. And then the few flashbacks that we do see, we also see evidence of Jenny just running from herself and running from this inner pain. And it's difficult, that level of avoidance, of feelings, of situations, of people, of confrontation, conflict, anything like that. I would imagine it can at times be kind of frustrating for the audience, just because somebody that closed off can be hard to connect to. That kind of drew me to Jenny, if I'm honest. I found, I like a protagonist that is complicated and that you don't necessarily automatically go, oh, I get that. I get her. I get what she's going through. You kind of have almost the opposite. You're like, I do not get this person. Like, what the hell is, at least for me, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very emotive and reactive. And Jenny, when she does actually allow herself to express, it comes out sideways. And I find that to be so human. We so often, our attempts at expression they're muddled and they're confused and they're so often out of adjustment because they're responding to something totally separate. Jenny, so much of what Jenny is going through in present is actually been following her from her past. And so she's responding to something today at this point in her life, it carries with it something so much deeper. And I just think that is so human. So to get into that mind space, I guess I would just say I had to be careful about of course, my job is to understand Jenny, but for a character like Jenny, she doesn't understand herself on so many levels, and she doesn't understand her own experience. And so dancing that line is definitely, is a challenge and was something that was a little daunting for, 25-year-old Eleanor, 6 months into my first year of a Meisner training program. And,
wow,
6 months into training is you're untraining, you're deconditioning yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely an interesting quite a task. And I'm so glad to hear that, that it resonated with you. That just makes me so happy. I feel very, very pleased to hear that, and that you were, that you had a response to Jenny, because I know that she's polarizing. Seems like, she's a tough cookie. Crack.
She sure is. And yes, I was so intrigued by your performance. And I noticed I was learning more about Jenny as the film went along, let's say in the beginning, the first portion, even moments like going to church. And you know why I say that? Was when another character who was all chirpy and hadn't seen you in a long time back in the day, and it was your character's response, almost a sense of indifference. And that's when I just started to realize, wow, this character really does seem very unhappy in general.
Yeah.
And that kind of made me, I just started to feel sad at that moment for some reason. Like, when people go through the motions and that's kind of how I was taking the moments like that.
Right. That's so true. It's such a moment of any attempt at connection for Jenny is, especially any reminder of her past. She's just like, nope, will not engage. And that is sad. That is sad.
Well, Eleanor, I have a question that I cannot wait to ask you.
Okay, let's do it.
Here it is. And I don't know, maybe someone has already asked you this, but I was thinking that in addition to the levels of grief that Jenny is experiencing, right? I wondered if there was an extra layer, though, like an extra element, in the sense that we are dealing with twins, right? Or your, twin brother. And my point is, I've read about the connections of twins and how one can be going through a distressful situation and the other somehow knows. And I'm wondering, did you ever think about that aspect that Jenny is maybe dealing with that twin connection through, with everything?
That's a good question, Stephen.
Oh, well, thank you.
Nobody has asked me that. And, it's funny because, so Jenny is actually, yes, she is a twin, but she's also a triplet. But
that's right.
Yes, exactly. I did actually reach out to the one person I know who is a triplet.
Oh.
And I was able to pick his brain a little bit just in terms of sort of what you're talking about, of this unspoken energy between siblings that are just that close, even if they don't end up emotionally close, just the physical and the genetic, all of that, all those components. What was interesting for me, and if I could do it over again, I'm sure that there would be perhaps a bit more consideration of that. But for what I was dealing with, what I was working with was actually Jenny's, the distance that Jenny has created between herself and her family. And I think that so much of the guilt that Jenny experiences from this initial tragedy back in the day that, we just see in some flashbacks to the tragedy that is happening in this film. So I think that part of the trauma and guilt that Jenny is experiencing in the film is that connection that she had with her siblings growing up. She cut that cord. She made that choice to disconnect completely from her remaining brother. And so her attempts to integrate what little she can of him into her life after the fact, coming back to Detroit and meeting Tanya and Cash and trying to immerse herself in his life. It's, I think, her attempt, her backwards and far too little and too late attempt to resurrect that connection, to find some thread that she can follow back to her brother. And, we see also in these dreams, these recurring dreams that she has of her brother who passed away, tragically earlier, the initial event that caused her to run and sever these ties. So that's such a great question. And I think that so much of what Jenny is dealing with and what is motivating Jenny's behavior is this deep, deep desire to reconnect and re-find that, what you were talking about, that amazing unspoken, like, connection between twins, between triplets, between siblings. Yeah, that's a beautiful question.
Isn't it interesting? I'm an only child, and yet
Yeah,
I
really,
just
that's
picked
like
up on
such
that.
a great question, Stephen. Nobody has asked me that, and I think that now that you've said that, it's so fun to do these and to hear what people think, because it reframes for me too, and I'm suddenly going, this is what a fun. You pick an angle, pick a lens, and it totally shifts.
Yeah.
What happens, and so I thank you for that, because that is a fun consideration now.
Well, you are most welcome, and I have another thing to bring up about your performance.
Yes, please.
Perhaps someone's already said this as well, but I definitely wanted to express this to you, Eleanor. Is one of the things that I just, from an acting standpoint, I love watching good acting, if you haven't figured that out already. But what I really loved about your performance is that you said so much without speaking.
Interesting. Thank you.
Through your eyes, and I just wanted to commend you on that. That was actually one of my favorite parts about your performance, was I felt like you were speaking through your eyes, even when she was not speaking.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, you are just. Thank you. I don't even know what to say beyond just thank you. That it just feels so good to hear. Oh, and you know what? I just also have to say that your passion and your love of film and of acting and your what's that word that I'm looking for? I guess that we could just say your perspective and how perceptive you are is so infectious. This energy, I just have to say.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here with you, and because it really is. I'm feeling it. And it's lovely. So thanks.
Well, thank you. I just feel so grateful to have this opportunity, and thank you.
Likewise.
What you just said is it's going to make the rest of my whole year. I really will.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Well, you and me both. Everything you've said has done the same for me. So there you go.
Well, you are most welcome. Well deserved. I have another question that I can't wait to ask you. So, let's say you're kind of having some fun with the crew, right? Maybe it's just a moment where you can have a little laugh or whatever. But, a lot of actors do like to get ready. Well, you've been on sets. No doubt you know what I'm talking about. They like to get ready a few moments before action is heard. But I'm just wondering, Eleanor, because of the state of mind and depths of turmoil of your character, I was just thinking perhaps you really did need a little extra time before Spencer said action. Or, am I right about that? Or are you able to hit that light switch and just kind of go for it?
Well, it's interesting because, we shot this entire film in 15 days.
Wow.
So we were working. And so by the time it was, decompression, go to sleep and start again time, that was, somewhat truncated just because I was sleepy and would just go right to sleep. So there was this overall kind of, I think I had, one day off in terms of like work days off. There was like one day of filming that I wasn't a part of. So there wasn't a lot of time in between the days to fully step out. So in that sense, I got to sort of remain there and as a consequence, a positive consequence, I think, of that, I was actually able on the days to just be silly when people were being silly and then sort of snap back to it because I did get to remain so focused throughout. I honestly, I really, it's exhausting. I can't, I have such respect for, these sort of longer productions, because wow. But so like, yes and no. It wasn't necessarily like I'm super amazing at flipping the switch and switching right back over, but I was able to have a little bit more freedom on set, like, not have to stay super, super dark. There was one day where obviously the big day,
Yeah.
when we shot the final scenes of the movie all in one day. And so that day I was definitely like, cannot engage unless it's as with Jenny, And so that day I definitely had to stay in, like totally in.
And talk about hitting a grand slam out of the park, Eleanor. Those moments that we're talking about in coded language, I guess, is that, I was just literally at that moment, I was just blown away. And I just thought, wow, this lady is just so talented. And I think I feel lucky that I actually saw your performance.
Wow. Thanks.
And you know what? The cast was, I would like to say, I was very impressed with your co-stars, and everybody seemed to fit so nicely.
Everyone was seriously so good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the exact same. I was just like, wow, everybody's so good. And it was so well cast. Spencer really cast it so well. And yeah.
Well, I would also, here's another question I can't wait to ask you.
Yeah.
I've got a few of them, and this is one of them. Well, okay, are you ready for this?
Ready.
I would like to ask you, and it really took me seeing the entire film to kind of have this reaction. And then the more I thought about it was this. Things might seem obvious to a certain extent, but then I realized they weren't. And that is it just me, or is Jenny under some form of personal delusion, like regarding the situation with her brother, his friends? And I suppose I'm referring to near the end of the film, if you know what I'm talking about. So kind of like that next to last scene, but that's a big one. Right. And I just realized that, wait a minute, I'm starting to think that Jenny maybe has a different perspective on things that maybe isn't necessarily reality.
Interesting. So you mean to say, like, do you mean to say, is she wrong?
You know what? I think that's what it is. Like, is she vilifying the other person unjustly, or
right? Got it.
Yes.
Got it. Good question. I would say, oh man, it's so hard. Is anything ever really just a yes or no answer these days? But I would say, on the one hand, absolutely, Jenny is lashing out of her own pain and making so much of her problem his problem.
Gotcha.
On the other hand, of course, there is some culpability to the situation, but obviously that is not the appropriate response. I don't think that anything. Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, it's a horrendous. Wow. It's a horrendous example of what happens when we don't heal our trauma, and when we're just walking around with these wounds that we refuse to engage with, and we end up doing so much more harm. And it's like, here was an opportunity for a whole family and chosen family, whatever, family of origin and chosen family, to heal, to come together, to address reality. I'm not saying that that's an easy task. I'm just saying that was an option on the table when something like this happens, and it just evolves culminates into this final act. It's just horrendous. And yeah, so Jenny is absolutely wrong in terms of her actions and the blame that she places. And I would say, in a word, yes, Jenny is wrong. I think Jenny is wrong, and the way that she goes about it is even more wrong. But, there is some culpability, as I said, to the situation, and there's definitely a conversation there. in terms of how to best move forward. But I don't think it involves anything that we see happening. I think it, if I may, I think, just a genuine, the facing of reality. That's all I think. And I think Jenny, rather than facing reality, was like, I'm going to do this crazy thing. It's my job. Then she has the voice of her mother creeping back in. She's back home. And it's just, she takes it into her own hands and does just wreak havoc and causes so much more harm. And yeah.
Well said. And then your final moments in the film pretty much is the proof of what you just said so well. That's what I think it's sinking in, like, oh my goodness, this is what I've done. This is how I've handled it. And guess what? Things are actually going to be worse now.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, once again, just hats off to you for that performance and those final moments.
That last moment, I'm pleased with how that, so sad, but you've got this character who's realizing what she's done and is realizing also, I think, she's flooded. The floodgates open and almost everything that she's shut herself off from comes rushing back in.
Well, did you have any unexpected moments during filming? Such a heavy topic in many ways, but was there anything fun or just unexpected that maybe occurred while filming that stands out in your mind?
That's a great question. We had a lot of fun on the dream sequence days.
Oh yeah,
those were really fun just because obviously
yes,
that was a fun day. It was a bit cold.
It did look cold.
Oh my God, that's what stands out to me.
I noticed these things.
20-degree weather in my see-through dress.
Ooh, gotcha.
But I love the day in the bookstore. The day, what I will say.
Tell me.
The days that Claudia and I got to drive around in the car together.
Oh.
Those were some beautiful experiences for me as a young actor with somebody who's such a master of the craft and such a fantastic force as Claudia. And we have built a friendship from this that transcends, the work. And I'm literally could not be more grateful to have met this person. Oh, she's my fairy godmother is what I call her.
And weren't those shots so nice that Spencer did with the backdrop of the city and the car? And I was like, ooh, I like that shot.
Truly beautiful. Yeah, gorgeous. and so well captured. And so that definitely stands out to me, those moments with Claudia and getting to experience that connection, that presence, that honesty, that openness with someone as amazing as Claudia. That's what stands out. And then also being on a set like that, being on a grassroots set where everybody wants to be there and everybody's connected to the work and driven and wants to see this thing flourish like that, just that energy, being around such amazing, every single person on the cast and crew was like just tippy top notch. Wow. So I that just overall that vibe, that energy was just like, yep, this is amazing.
Well, Eleanor, I want to thank you for sharing filming memories and diving into your character. Of
course.
I had such a good time. I would like to end, though, by asking you this. Now that you've experienced such a challenging role, okay, like this, and you've come out with flying colors, what did you notice that you found most rewarding about acting? Actual acting?
Excellent question. These are such good questions, Steven.
Thank you so much.
Have you done this before?
Well, I've done it for a few years. Since 2016.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing. I was kidding, obviously, but yes, now I know exactly when it started.
That's right. Now you've got the actual date.
Yes, exactly. So I will say, acting is an honoring of human experience, at least for me. And when I made that discovery, when that was revealed to me, that I am, as an individual, Eleanor, super interested in psychology and neuroscience and scientific, research behind why people do what they do. I love to understand the brain. I love to understand, spirituality. I love to understand the impulses that human beings have. And
that makes two of us.
Personal. Yeah, right? It's like the most interesting thing. And maybe that's because, anyway, moving on. I think that acting is an outside-in version of that. Sure, I may not, be researching the mechanisms of the brain, but I'm looking at some manifest behavior, and I get to go, now, why the hell did you do that? What is going? Because that's it. That's amazing. I wanted to do that. I do that all the time with everybody in my life. And it's like, in my own head, of course, I'm like, ooh, I wouldn't have done that. What can I potentially probably just project onto you as why you would maybe do that? And it's, it's something I'm naturally kind of doing. If that were my response, what would I have to be going through for that to make sense to me? And that is the job of an actor, is to do something truthfully under imaginary circumstances. That's something I learned in my acting class that has really stayed with me is doing truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And that requires empathy and compassion and curiosity and so many other impulses, I'll say, or ways of interacting with the world that to be able to explore in a profession and to also bring that into then life, it makes you a more curious and, like I said, empathetic person, I think. So now, before I just say, I don't like what you're doing, I can have a little bit of curiosity and compassion for the reasons maybe why you might be doing that. And I'd like to understand you,
Yeah.
It's like, instead of going, what's wrong with you? It's like, what do you need and what's going on?
Yeah.
And so any opportunity to integrate that into my life is something I'm very grateful for. So I that's what I would say is my favorite thing about acting.
Wow. What a beautiful answer. I'm so inspired by that. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Of course. Thank you for asking.
Well, I have to tell you, it almost feels like we've talked before. It's very interesting to me.
It does, doesn't it?
Oh, wow. Well, Eleanor, really, thank you once again. I've enjoyed every moment speaking with you, and I just hope it won't be the last time.
I hope so, too. Thank you for saying that, and thank you for such a wonderful conversation and such thoughtful questions. And, as you said, I hope we get to do it again.
Hi, friends and listeners. This is host Steven Brittingham. Do you happen to have a question or a comment for me? Or perhaps you feel that you might make an interesting guest here on Hollywood and Beyond. Whatever your reason may be, please feel free to contact me anytime directly at the show's official email address. That would be hollywoodandbeyondshow@gmail.com. That is hollywoodandbeyondshow@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you soon.